Alrighty. This is crazy because I think this is the first episode we might be filming this year. No, I think that one was technically it was early
second.
though.
So we'll get to a much higher clip soon.
Oh yeah. But we are back for episode 5, and it might be hard to tell, but once again the layout of the studio has changed. Maybe one day we'll lock that down too. But you know what? It still works, and we're excited to be here. We have a lot to talk about. As always, I'm Jared. Kobe, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. What's new? How you been?
What's new is that I am sleep deprived, but I'm happy to be here. It's fall now. It actually feels like fall, so we're getting used to that.
For better or worse, yeah. I know I do like the fall, but I had to put like 2 coats on today to take her for a walk, and okay, we're not doing that. Not sure what the title of this episode is going to be yet, but the main point, one of the main topics that we'll get into later is an idea you threw out, Kobe, which is related to the TV projects and how their importance dependence has kind of changed since the MCU first became a thing versus now. So I don't know if you want to elaborate a little on that real quick before we get into our intro topics.
So, I mean, based on what you said with the topic for the episode, I would say a good name and sort of like theme for the episode, for me, I would say Crossroads, because that's kind of what's going on right now. Okay. I would say with superhero media and cinematic universes and just Marvel in general, very similar thing is happening to them right now. They've done this before. We're just feeling a little bit differently about it now because, well, things have gone very differently. But, sorry, to be a bit more specific, when we finished Endgame, that was the end of the grand end of Phase 3, and we knew we were kind of going into a new era, and a big part of going into a new era was the beginning of Disney Plus, which what was going to do was expand the storytelling abilities of Disney in general, but the MCU for sure. It's really hard to do every single story as a movie, as we know. Not that some of these characters aren't worthy of their own movies, as we see that happens, but we were going to have shows for characters that we had seen before, some new characters that we need to be introduced to, and that was going to create a problem of a lot of extra content and the amount of interest in some of the content and the willingness of some to indulge in all of that content, or as many people have decided to term it, homework.
Yes.
So all I really have to say for now is that in the beginning, I think Marvel made it pretty much essential to sort of watch the beginning of Marvel and Disney Plus. It was kind of one of those things where if you missed out on it, you were immediately behind. And I would say that mindset and that model has changed. And I think for the most part for the better, but also there are effects of that I think we're seeing that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Absolutely. So I love that. Great tease. We'll also be discussing our theories for Doomsday, because that's going to be upon us before we know it. But first and foremost, the 2 big events that have happened since our last recording were Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. So let's start with Thunderbolts. What did you think? Let's start at the most basic level. Score 1 to 10. How do you think Thunderbolts did?
I thought Thunderbolts was fantastic, no pun intended. It was really, really well done. It had definitely some of those vibes that I would say we got from Black Panther and Guardians in terms of the ensemble, but Black Panther in terms of the surprise of the richness of the story and just how enjoyable the movie was. I don't think it's a stretch to say that recently people go into some of these movies with lowered expectations or just try not to go in with expectations at all. And I think that really helped in this case because it was really well done. I think a lot of people had forgotten about how interesting these characters were because, a lot of Marvel is heroes, right? And not every character is just straight as an arrow. There's a lot of shades of gray. There's a lot of ambiguity. And I kind of like that some of these characters are just trying to do their best, but in, morally ambiguous ways. And we had a lot of these characters, which if you really listen to some of their bickering during a movie, they're basically comparing notes on just how terrible of human beings they've been over their time so far. So the dynamics of the characters was good. I thought... I was just very impressed. Definitely, I enjoyed kind of the pacing of it, too. It didn't feel like we were just zooming along. They slowed down and let some moments really simmer so that we could appreciate sort of the payoff later. Absolutely. So I would say out of 10, I'd probably say I'll give it a solid 7.8.
Nice. Yeah, I had it 7.5, and I would maybe even go, possibly up to an 8 or closer. Part of what might have, I don't know if skewed to the right word, but I did rewatch Thunderbolts and then 24 hours later watch Fantastic Four for the first time, and I love Fantastic Four. So I don't know if my trying to score one and then go, oh, compared to Fantastic Four though, how was it? But I still thought it was great. I agree. Also, I think we should talk about one of the best opening scenes for a Marvel movie that we've seen. Maybe not ever, but at least in the recent list of projects that we've had. I mean, this scene with her jumping off the roof is just so...
Yeah, and so, not to talk about Fantastic Four
go for it.
right away, but I think the theme of these two movies are kind of more of a return to practical effects. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of set building, a lot of props that were used, and vehicles, and a lot of stunt work that was done more practically in these two movies. Mm-hmm. That was highlighted very heavily in the campaign for Thunderbolts, and a bit more subtly for Fantastic Four. But I like that you brought that up because Florence actually did that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They kind of did it with a stunt double quite a few times, and I think she just really begged and wanted to do it for real, and to put herself in the movie in that moment. Mm-hmm. Especially like you said, it's the first big moment of the movie, so it's just cool that she got involved and actually did the stunt. Kudos to her for doing that,
100%.
And kudos to the crew and the cast for putting themselves out there a bit more. And I think especially for the Thunderbolts, these characters that you're not going to see a ton of them. We got to see most of them as sort of complementary pieces in other movies. So now that they're all kind of starring in this movie, it's nice that they definitely did their best to be front and center, and more than just some of the quieter scenes. They were front and center in the action scenes, and the chemistry was there. You can tell that this cast had spent some time together and really developed those bonds and that cohesiveness.
I did really like that, I will say, and I do have a point on here, but I actually haven't seen the Suicide Squad. I know you have. I was going to ask if it gives similar vibes, and I put, even though I haven't seen it, I just put, I'm thinking no, because I think we saw this team be a lot more cohesive than I feel like I heard coming from the Suicide Squad, but you're more of the expert here on that, so I don't know if you have any thoughts.
I mean, it's similar vibes because with both movies, you kind of have these characters that are grudgingly working together. I'd say with the Marvel aspect, there's a bit more care and sort of appreciation for each other. Mainly because, yes, they're sort of their lives are threatened. I mean, in both cases, although with Suicide Squad, it's more sort of like, if you don't do this, we literally have an explosive in you, versus Thunderbolts is mortal peril, but they don't, it's one of those things where they can choose to continue being together and working together, versus Suicide Squad, where it's definitely like, well, we completed this mission, we're gonna split, maybe some of us will reconvene, but there's sort of that necessity to work together to get through it, versus Thunderbolts, where at the end, it's clear that there is a bond.
Yes.
And that they're gonna try and continue what they've created and found with a group of misfits.
Yes, and I feel like we see that pretty, early in the film. Even though it's kind of Walker, I feel like leads a lot of it, but even though he's begrudgingly doing it, he's more so doing he's I made an executive decision, but then he's but it was to save this team. They're you were an asshole, and they're but everyone's alive, right? But then 5 minutes later, when their van blows up and they have to walk the rest of the way, and he's oh look, this berry in the desert is safe to eat, so I'm gonna cut this up for all of us. It's I don't know. I loved it, but it was kind of interesting.
There was sort of that irritated military man, sort of overbearing dad energy that he couldn't resist.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And maybe part of that is him trying to rediscover some purpose, because again, as we learn in this movie, he does not have a lot going for him right now other than the job, much like Yelena. We don't really get into Ghost's story, basically, how her life is
still
doing.
Alone.
Obviously, Taskmaster, we only get 2 seconds with Taskmaster, and the only thing we see is she's able to, her one line she delivers very clearly and very confidently, and I know when we last saw her at the end of Black Widow, she's obviously very messed up, so she can't really form sentences or words, but this time she's very purposeful, very clear and cut, and I am personally a little sad that they just yeeted her out of the movie very quickly. I feel like they could have at least given her a couple more scenes, but nope, I guess they had other plans. So
yeah,
I don't know, maybe there's too much going on, but I really would have loved to hear more.
And I definitely think that was one of those we need to establish stakes right away kind of scenes of anybody is potentially up for grabs here, which you tend to see in these kinds of movies. And
that's a good point.
To piggyback off your point with where they're all at, they make it very clear that they're all sort of struggling.
Yes.
And this is basically all they have. Mm-hmm. They've thrown themselves into work and doing what they do best, which is being mercenaries and using the skills they have to help Valentina, because Valentina has sort of taken them all in and entrusted them, and of course that's for her own nefarious purposes. But it's all they have, so they cling to it. And there's a fun scene where they sort of all realize that like we're all here because of the same person.
Yep.
And then everything kind of stops and logic kicks in
very quickly. Yes.
Which is fun to see done that way. I thought was really, really good.
Yeah, almost. I wonder if that would happen, if that realization would happen as quickly if it was like, because I feel like there's that saying that like untrustworthy people don't trust other people, and this is a group of very untrustworthy people. So I wonder if they're just like, oh yeah, I could totally see that happening, or maybe some like if it was the actual Avengers, they might be like, no, there's no way that the person in charge of us would suddenly turn on all of us. No way, they're not using all of us. But yeah,
until about 60 seconds later, we're like, oh god.
Yeah. Although I guess there is that brief moment where even Walker's like the last one suggested, and he's like, "Oh,
there's no way."
Yeah, and then they're like, "We're literally in a giant heater right now.
We're going to die." Like, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, I did think overall, I am excited to see them all come back again. We do already know that again we're gonna get to Doomsday later, but we do already know we will see all of them again in Doomsday, including Bucky and the Red Guardian as well. So they are all confirmed. So we'll be curious to see how they team up, and also because now they are the new Avengers,
right? And so we'll kind of talk about what we think of all these different potential teams and how they're all going to interact. And I think we'll kind of blend what we sort of have heard in terms of rumor and speculation versus what will end up probably happening or what we think will happen.
The only thing I had left related to Thunderbolts, the theme of this movie is again it's another story about mankind attempting to create a superhuman in the Century.
We haven't even talked about him at all.
No. So please
continue.
My question was just how do we feel about this being at the center of another story? And when I typed this out and sent it to you, I hadn't thought this through yet. And so this morning when I had some time, I was thinking it through. And the ultimate conclusion I came to was, if Sentry is already an established character in like the MCU world, which I believe he is, I don't read the comics or anything like that, but I believe he's already been established. So if that's true, I'm okay with it. But I'm very curious on the program that got him to be the Sentry, because we did have, obviously first we had the Super Soldier program, and then after that we just had a bunch of people just trying to recreate that, and that came in multiple different forms and even a Soviet knockoff. But this is, I feel like, the first time we saw a program produce a godlike being. I guess you could argue the Hulk a little bit, but Sentry would clear Hulk, I think, no question. So this is like the best result we've ever seen. So I just want to know what was different about this program.
The best result.
And then, if that's what you want to call it, the most powerful result. So I want to know, I'd like to know a little bit more about what happened there. And also, now I'm curious because the logical question then after that would be, is Valentina or someone now trying to replicate that result? I would kind of expect it, because if it produces results like this, that could really replace some of the heavy hitters we've lost since Endgame. But again, I personally think that story's a little overused. So those are my thoughts, and I'm going to send it to you now after I just kind of trauma dumped on you there a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing, when you talk about super soldiers and programs like that in the MCU, it's a big storyline, and it goes through several different arcs, several different parts of the universe. I mean, so unfortunately, they only ever get it right once, and that's with Steve Rogers. Yes. Let's just be honest about that, because Hulk is a product of them trying to recreate that serum. Red Skull is a product of them trying to recreate that serum.
Oh, that's right, I forgot about that.
Extremis is them taking a different approach to reproducing that serum. Every sort of way they kind of attack this, they can get close, but they don't ever really get it done correctly.
Right.
I would say, so in this case, they changed it a little bit, but basically they kind of did this accidentally, and they did it, again, if you go back to the first Avenger, Dr. Erskine talks about how, the kind of person that it wasn't just about the serum itself, it's about the kind of person too. That's why we have like the two sides where we see Red Skull versus Captain America there, and what it does to each of them. In this case, we haven't really touched on this at all. You have somebody who's severely troubled from a mental health perspective, from just emotionally, he's been through it. They do a really good job of kind of like showing that, but like they don't, they do it quickly.
Yes.
They give you little snippets. They show little bits and pieces to like basically tease that he has had a rough life, but he was trying to find purpose, trying to find a way to sort of like make a meaningful contribution, stumble into this program, and just happened to be the missing piece for them to sort of like, theirs is a very drug-based program, and it unlocks something in him, but unfortunately he's not exactly an ideal specimen.
Yes.
So when you say they got something right, they absolutely did, but they also got something terribly wrong because with him, unfortunately, there's two sides. There's this great potential, this like almost limitless being, but it's so unstable that the other side dominates. So again, you have a problem where you have this great potential, but you also just have the other side, which is like it's almost too dangerous to harness, and we see that in this movie.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing problem, and it's not something that you can just sort of like lock up or shove under the rug. Like it's one of those things where every time we get the Sentry, they always have the potential of allowing the Void to come through too.
Right, and by the way, probably one of the scariest powers I feel like of a antagonist that we've seen, where he just freaking turns them into a black imprint or whatever, a shadow on the street.
It was amazing.
Done very well.
It was done excellently. Excellently. I really appreciated sort of like the build up to it too, because I actually, for a second, thought like, how are they going to do this? It looks like he's actually dead.
Yeah.
So like, but then the black just kind of seeped out and took over, and then man, here we go. I think my favorite part of that whole sequence, and I think you remember this part too, is there's a point in the movie where they had to save a bunch of civilians. Which they do.
Yes.
No. And then Red Guardian saves a girl, and it's one of those like cheering parts. Everybody's just like excited and happy, and then she disappears. Just and the sound that it makes, and the mark it leaves behind, and it's one of those oh shit moments.
You and I were in the theater for that, and you could hear a fucking pin drop in that theater when that happened. Because we're like, yay, it's a great moment. We saved a little girl, and then it's just like, instant, no warning, she's gone. It's
and
like,
there's no sort of like,
did that.
You know, in that moment, the's no sort of like guarantee that these people are coming back, right?
Right, yeah, we have no clue what that is.
We don't really know the limitation to these powers.
Yeah.
What has this happened? So we're like, are these people gone for good? Are they gone for now?
Right.
Like, has he harmed them in some way?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
something I noticed going off of that on the rewatch though is when in the very beginning of the movie when Yelena is finding the documents before we even meet Bob, there is a picture of that effect, and I didn't realize. I thought it was just like I didn't realize that's what it was.
I didn't think about that.
And on my rewatch,
too.
I was just like, oh shit! So they're aware this was already happening, and then I don't know if they, I don't know what happened to him when they were basically like, we think he's dead. I don't know if that was they killed him or if he just
I think he was probably
out or something.
They probably thought he was dead. They probably thought he'd expired and it was just the drugs sort of like doing their thing. Because they didn't show him directly in there, but they basically implied that he had just been in this chamber and probably had like flatline, and they probably just left him in there and we're going to throw him in there to burn, right? Just, this guy, he's dead. We've got to get rid of the body. He's got rid of the evidence. So put him in the room.
Man. Bob the Sentry. Yeah, so great detail when I rewatched it recently. I do think really good project. There's a lot to unpack in that post-credit scene. Obviously, when the new Avengers have officially been formed.
Might be the longest one that we've had in a while, if not the longest ever. And I should have checked that.
Yes.
But yeah, continue.
I just had a lot of questions. I had, I love, first of all, there's a 14-month jump. I'm like, that's very specific. Is there a significance to that, or did they just pick 14 months?
Crazy.
That is kind of crazy. We do see Sentry again in that post-credit scene, but he's obviously like, I'm not touching my powers. He's just in the corner reading a book with some tea. So I'm like, are they actively trying to rehabilitate him and hopefully one day bring him into the fold, or are they just like, it's a lost cause, it's not going to happen, or at least it's not ready right now? But I'm most intrigued by why there's this friction between the new Avengers and Sam Wilson that they don't give us much details on. But I think it's interesting, especially coming off of Captain America 4, where the main theme in that film was that Sam is admitting or coming to realize that we need to bring the Avengers back. So he's already accepted that. He's like, we're bringing them back, no question. And Valentina never specifies like, hey, these are your only new Avengers. Right. So I feel like it would have been pretty easy for them to just be like, hey, let's just merge, and now we were bringing the Avengers back anyway, and like, Bucky, I've worked with you, and Walker, you know what, we can put aside our differences, yada yada yada. I'm just very confused as to why. It's just because it's established that Bucky and Sam had a conversation and it went poorly, and so I'm very curious as to what went on there. That was my biggest question about that.
And I think they probably did it on purpose, and what I imagine in my head is that there's an ownership about being an Avenger, right?
Yes.
I think that's an important thing, and I think Sam was probably looking forward to doing this his way. Those movies happened right around the same time, so I'm guessing he was not too thrilled that like this new Avengers team is a thing with some not so great characters overall who admittedly have probably turned the corner. But again, if you're Sam Wilson, you're Captain America, you're trying to put together a new team, and this new other team emerges, which also just has your really, really good friend on it, it just probably feels like a little bit of a gut punch. And so I'm guessing there's friction there. Now, what I wish they'd sort of tease is who's on, and I can take some guesses, but who's on Sam's team, because I'm sure in 14 months it's not just him.
True. True.
probably already established
He's
a team of sorts.
at least a few people.
Yeah.
I mean, we already knew coming out of the movie that he's bringing in the new Falcon for sure, because that was part of the thing after he recovers.
You know, I can speculate probably, you know, Bruce, if he is kind of back into fighting shape.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi, Ant-Man,
for sure,
maybe
Ant-Man.
like Shuri, you know, because obviously he has a Wakanda to thank for his great suit.
Yes.
So there's definitely some people that are probably already helping him out, and maybe it's one of those like this team versus that team things, public eye.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get a taste of that
Yes.
as we get into Doomsday. Maybe we'll get like a little teaser of it in Spider-Man 4.
True.
If we're lucky.
And my last question was purely silly. I was like, why does Walker still have a taco shield? It's been 14 months. He didn't get someone to unbend it.
I secretly hope that he has a new shield in Doomsday, but there's part of me that thinks he's just so attached to that thing that we're going to see it, at least at first in that movie, and I will laugh.
If he can make it function where it like actually helps him out, more power to him.
Yeah.
And that makes me think that's what's going on, because I'm like, that would bug the shit out of me. Like, it's not a shield. It bends around your arm, but maybe he uses it to, I don't know, maybe that's better for hitting people. I don't know. So I just thought it was funny. And then, you know, obviously now I just have more questions after watching Fantastic Four. Now to transition into our
let's get into that.
I have more questions now about, obviously, in that post-credit scene we see the Fantastic Four ship.
Yes.
And I thought that would be explained in the actual Fantastic Four movie. We got nothing. No hint as to why that's going on or what the cause of that is. So now I have more questions, but let's talk about Fantastic Four, which I just saw like literally less than 48 hours ago or something like that.
It's fresh.
It's fresh. You've seen it just once, a couple times. Where are we at right now?
I've seen it a couple times. I do want to say that I was very impressed with how they did Galactus. I want to say that for the first time, and people maybe might not completely agree with this, so the first iteration, yes, obviously they were family, but I never got the impression that it was more like friends and family, and it felt that way to me, because the whole Ben and Johnny friction all the time, like it felt more acrimonious and playful. And I always felt like you know, Reed and Sue were off doing their own thing, so I'm like, you know, it just felt like two groups of people and they kind of come together, and like it's fun, and there's obviously they're related, they're connected in that way, but this time, like, and maybe it was because they've been established and they kind of showed like them going through trials and tribulations, but they felt more like a family in this movie. They felt more like a unit in this movie.
Absolutely.
And they showed them all in different problem-solving ways, different intelligent ways. Because Johnny, you know, came off as just kind of a bozo. You know, and even Ben in the first iteration, like, sure, he had smarts, obviously, because he kind of been like team leader when they went up to space and flown the ship and stuff. But I felt like they showed more of that in this iteration too.
I had a similar point about Johnny. I'm like, okay, they didn't just show him as a ladies' man. They gave him his big brain moment when he broke the code on the language of the server. And I was like, I really loved that. And then his moment where he like revealed it to her, I was like, this is a badass scene. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Johnny's cooking right now.
She wasn't ready for that.
She was not. So I thought that did great, because I feel like, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience with the Fantastic Four. That's the other thing. You're also, I think, more you have more knowledge in that area than I do. My only exposure is really the Silver Surfer, the Fantastic Four movie, whenever that came out. And yeah, I feel like back then he was just a ladies' man. That's what his deal was.
That was his role.
He did
comic relief.
He did kind of take on a lot at the end of that movie, if I remember correctly, because all their powers merged into him or whatever, and he used that to defeat Doom. So he kind of, you know, whatever, had a moment in that movie, but it was more again about his power, not about his brain.
Yes.
And even he was like, I don't even know if this is going to work, but like, might as well try it.
Yep, they had nothing else to do at that point.
Yes. So I really liked how they portrayed that, and I agree. I think they felt like a really cohesive team in this movie. So I personally gave it a 9 out of 10. I really liked it. I thought it was amazing. And I also agree. I thought Galactus was portrayed he was pretty terrifying.
He was imposing.
Yeah. Like, it was, I think it was great, because everything they threw at him, he just like instantly was like, yeah, it's not going to work on me.
Nothing really worked for long, and nothing really kind of slowed him down.
Yeah.
And I love like how sort of they built up to what the final sort of
solution.
Yeah, that's a great word for it. What the solution was eventually going to be, because like it's like, what are they going to do here?
Yes.
And it turned out that Sue kind of had to like go crazy,
which I do,
which was awesome.
Yes, I like that they showed her power can scale that high, but B, it comes at a cost, and I guess kind of sub B, that's what it takes, though, when you're talking about Galactus, who is what is his technical species?
So he is a Celestial.
Yes, that exactly.
He is a Celestial.
If you're going to take down a Celestial, that's what it's going to take. You can't just kill him. I don't think them alone.
That's extremely hard to do, and I'm not sure that it's a finite thing. I don't think that's something they can actually...
Right.
It's not something that sticks, I guess is what I'll say when it comes to that. But anyway, I think they did a great job with this movie. I'm glad they kind of had them off in their own little corner. I think it's going to be fascinating to see them interact with all the other heroes.
Yes.
And as far as how they end up in their universe or vice versa, your guess is as good as mine. I was thrown off by the fact they didn't even try and connect those dots.
Didn't touch anything.
So here we are going in this movie, and it looks like there's a lot of storytelling that's going to be happening in this movie. Probably a lot more than maybe we wanted or expected, but we've been through this before.
Oh yeah,
in a Avengers movie.
Yes. So going off that, first of all, that post credit scene that shook me when I saw the mask. I was like, holy shit. Okay. Yep. So like now we're getting serious here. Like now Doomsday is coming here. My theory, don't know if it's actually fleshed out or don't know if it actually tracks, but I think that all this, or what we've seen in Fantastic Four combined with the post-credit scene after Thunderbolts, which are in two different universes. We have 818 versus 616. I think that suggests that Doom is in fact like actually Tony Stark, and so like in Fantastic Four, in that post-credit scene, I think Doom rolls up. I think he takes Franklin, and either before he does so, when Sue is talking to him, either when she's talking to him before he leaves, or after he leaves, and they break down like the security footage of their house, they connect the dots that no, this is Tony Stark, or they are able to figure it out, and they trace him back to this is a being from 616. Now we need to go to 616 to figure out more about Tony and maybe how to beat him or how he got to this way.
That's a great theory.
Otherwise, I'm just trying to figure out why they would roll up on a different universe, but there could be several reasons. It could be unrelated to Doom, but I feel like that's unlikely at this point.
Right, and I think it's a great thought that they are jumping universes because they are looking for Franklin or searring for a way
how to find him,
find Doom.
Find him.
Which could involve dealing with the absence of Franklin. Yeah, because I'd be shocked if not in that scene, but soon after, Doom doesn't just like take him, use him. Without getting into it in too much detail, Franklin's a very important figure because of his potential and his power set, and there's definitely probably interest from Doom in utilizing that to achieve his goals.
Yes.
Because Doom has power and abilities of his own, but Doom is very good at using others to extend his agenda.
Oh yeah,
and I'm sure Franklin won't be the only one. There's at least two other characters I'm thinking of that may end up being manipulated by Doom in very significant ways. So that's going to be fascinating. We're getting little breadcrumbs, and we're going to have to use those to sort of see where the story goes next. But I think that's going to be a big beginning story in this movie for sure.
But going off of those two projects, though, you wanted to briefly talk about comparing them to Captain America 4.
Yeah, I think
let's talk about that.
The big thing is we don't have to spend too much time on it, but
no, I want to.
It's Disney, as we know. They're the overlords of Marvel. I felt like in the beginning of the year there was a lot of hope for these projects. There was a lot of hope around Captain America, kind of starting things off. But one thing that's very different in that movie that I appreciated in the other two movies is that I felt like the editing and pacing was on point with those two movies. You can tell, and it's been talked about, that Captain America went through some cuts, went through some rewriting, went through some reworking, which, obviously as a Captain America fan, kind of irritates me. We'll never really know what the true total story, some of the parts was supposed to be. I still think overall decent movie. I think it will age better, especially as we get more stories interlaced there. But for me, that was sort of a disappointing thing because you go back now and obviously those Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four are just superior just overall in execution. And then with Captain America, there are parts that are great. There are some other parts that are just undercooked.
Yes.
And there's something sort of like left there, there's some longing there for like a bit more substance overall. But I think what they did do a good job of is with all three of these projects, we're getting back to sort of like what the threat, like these are the characters that are going to be primary characters in the threat that we're going to be facing, right?
Yeah.
They had kind of gone off into some other corners of the world / universe. So they were sort of like reeling it back in. I was just going to like bring up the projects that we'd had. Yeah. The year before, we'd had Guardians, The Marvels, and Deadpool.
Okay.
So, Guardians obviously is off-world. It's out in the universe. The Marvels, kind of the same thing. Yeah. It was related to Earth, but it was doing some other things. And then Deadpool and Wolverine, we're talking about different universes. So setting some things up for sure that are going to be important. But then these ones were all Earth-based. They were all, two of them are Earth.
Yes.
One of them a different Earth, but with characters that are essential to the character that's gonna really mix things up. So it's fun that now we're going into next year. We've literally got Spider-Man before Doomsday, and that one's going to be as grounded as it gets. Like, we're getting to see what he's been up to since the last time we saw him, and then we're going to jump right in. And I think that just thinking about that is almost a little crazy because we'll talk about it later. I'm hoping to kind of stick to a story that's mainly about Spider-Man, what's going on with him, and not so much the overarching threats and things like that. That's going to come later. We'll kind of see, but I thought it was a strong enough year in terms of getting us to care about what's coming on the horizon.
Oh, yeah. And I do feel like, at least in terms of Fantastic Four, I feel like I've heard a few different people who are like, I'm not big into Marvel, but I went and watched Fantastic Four, and I thought it was great. So I do love at least hearing that. I thought it was beautifully shot, too. Something about the quality. I don't know, it looked really good.
Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job,
really good.
Didn't they?
Yeah.
Really kind of set it apart in its own universe in a lot of ways. They wanted to make that very clear.
Yeah.
And they did it really well.
I just thought it was funny too, but again, you're right, it's their own universe, but they had, like flying cars and stuff. Now part of that is the Fantastic Four versus the rest of society, so that's different.
Yes.
But then you got people taking pictures on like old-timey cameras. And
I know,
like,
very interesting fusion of new and old, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I kind of liked it. It kind of worked really well. So now we can talk about kind of our main topics we wanted to cover here. How would you like to begin this conversation about TV? What are some projects that are kind of jumping out to you that you want to talk about in this section?
I mean, when I talk about this, I definitely want to, in the beginning, it was very clear that they wanted to wrap in some of these TV series with the movies, right away. So, WandaVision and Captain America and Winter Soldier were kind of the first evidence of that. That was a priority for them, right? They wanted to start it off with a bang, make sure that we were seeing that this is still all connected. This is still going to be very important. I mean, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was supposed to be the first one, ended up being the second one, but that led straight into his feature film, right?
Oh, yes.
WandaVision, kind of the same thing. That was sort of an effort to, because what ended up happening is the plot threads from that led straight into Multiverse of Madness. We had Loki, another one that was really important for what's going to be happening later on. And then they started introducing other things and sort of deviating from that path. And so we heard right away complaints of, man, there's going to be too much to watch. There's going to be too much, I think there was excitement at first, and then there was this sort of a dawn of realization of, oh no, and it's one of those things where if you ask for more content, you shouldn't then sort of turn around and complain about the amount of content.
Yes, absolutely.
What I think they sort of, what I wish they would have done better is sort of maybe not made it as essential in the beginning like they did. But what they've done now is they've said, well, we have a lot of shows now where they aren't going to be directly tied into what's going on. There will be references made, there'll be some connections, but it is not if you are going to go watch this movie, you're going to miss out. I think it's hilarious that Deadpool and Wolverine, they sort of pointedly make jokes about specific things. And for example, in Loki, he literally points out a specific thing in a specific episode that happened one time. And again, they're poking fun at the fact that, we did this thing, we know. We made you get hyper-focused on this. Well, we're not doing that anymore, just a way to sort of say, this isn't going to be the way things are anymore. It was at one point, because, they started off with, again, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, which wasn't, but kind of was, but then we found out it really wasn't. It was sort of one of those things where oh my God, is it actually? It's no, it's definitely for fun. What if? Enjoy this. But we're going to loop in storylines that you've seen. We're going to change them a little bit. It's going to be fun. Hawkeye, again, taking somebody we know, putting him in a different situation, Next Generation, and then Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk. I think that's where we started hearing a lot of complaints. A lot of people saying, why do we care about this? Are these characters worth the time? Worth the interest? Which again, I would argue absolutely.
Yes.
I would say just because they're not going to connect to this greater narrative doesn't mean their stories aren't worth telling. I would also 100%. Say it's going to be impossible to involve every single character that they introduce, and they probably shouldn't.
No.
I I think the big one, Daredevil, I don't think that he needs to be included in this grand Avengers effort at all. No. Will he maybe get a little cameo or a little bit of action at some point? Maybe. I don't think it's necessary, though. No. If he remains a street-level villain, he remains a street-level villain. Or a hero, sorry. So we'll see how it continues. All I'm gonna say though about anybody who complains is that like at this point, Marvel's made it very clear: enjoy the things that interest you. The things that don't, you can step away from. And they've kind of created more shows that aren't even connected directly to the giant MCU narrative. You know, they've got a couple animated shows that are critically acclaimed with Spider-Man, with X-Men, sort of like a callback to those eras when those shows were popular.
Yeah, X-Men 97 was awesome.
Yeah, and then Resurrecting Daredevil, that's been a very big
request, ask.
That's good words for it. Yeah. And just a very big crowd pleaser for a lot of people who thought like that character, that sort of universe and world was dead, and he is back, roaring back, and bringing all of his like allies and villains and stuff with him, and they're back for a second season, what's probably gonna be a third season. So like that is alive and well too for those people who are hungry for more Daredevil. We have that. We're gonna get Jessica Jones. You're gonna get some of those other characters that like from the Netflix side of things that was sort of shuttered. Well, they're back now. I think what I'm worried about with this whole TV thing though is that like, and we're seeing it in other mediums too, is that some of these characters who end up in movies and people are just sort of like yawning a little bit about like, well, you know, I've saw them on TV. Maybe I'll just wait for it on TV. We're seeing a little bit of that like fatigue now. Okay. Yeah. I think that happened with the Marvels, frankly, because two of those characters you met in TV shows.
Right.
So then when they did this feature film, there's a lot of reasons we could say that didn't work. I think a big reason we heard is that, well, some people weren't even familiar with who they were because they hadn't watched the shows, so they maybe weren't interested in seeing the movie. So then there's that, like, well, you know, I'll catch that on Disney Plus, I guess.
Right.
And then that's sort of permeated with a lot more of the movies now, where there is sort of like this dependence that they sort of started with Disney Plus is sort of creeping into the movies, so to speak.
So some people are not going to watch the movies, or they're waiting for them to get on Disney Plus, and then who knows if they're even actually watching them at that point.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's evidence that they are, because like I think one of the big things about Captain Marvel that was sort of like it was very interesting in terms of at a point in the progression, as we've sort of come out of COVID and sort of seeing streaming versus movies. That movie underperformed in the box office, underperformed in theaters, but it was very popular in Disney Plus when it hit streaming. To the point where it got a lot of good audience reviews and a lot of good like feedback in that way, like highly rated once it got to streaming. So it made me think like, if there'd been enough interest in people to go see it in movies, would it have done better? Would it have been tested more positively? Because it's not like people weren't interested in the character. It was more just like, probably at that point too, when I kind of look at where we were with the movies and everything, I think people said, well, you know, like, we've had a couple duds, so to speak, so maybe we don't need to go and invest in that movie.
Sure.
Ant-Man had come out at the beginning of that year, and I think that had been a disappointment. We had gotten Guardians, though, and that was a rising success. Great. So we had, like, a disappointment and a success, and then people were just kind of like, I don't know, and, like, who's Miss Marvel, and, like, do we go? So that was the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I agree with, I think the main takeaway that I would love to see if, you know, whoever's listening to this, and whoever it reaches, or if it's just us talking to each other, I think the main takeaway from this section should be, to your point of, if you like it, just watch it. Like, yes, don't focus on watching everything. Just focus on what you watch, or just focus on what you like. And here's the thing. You never know what's going to happen with that project. And so I think a perfect example is Loki. Loki, great TV show. I think it should still be watched. But obviously it was made and filmed to very much contribute to the Kang arc that is no longer happening, which they never expected that to happen, of course. But obviously totally being scrapped now. So it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's not going to really... It might play into Doomsday a little bit, but not as much as it would have played into the Kang arc if we were still doing the Kang arc. So that kind of lost some importance at the, compared to what it initially was set to have. But then you have something like, not a TV show, but you have something like The Marvels, the film, where maybe some people didn't like that as much because, again, you know, you're right. Feedback on those characters, the reception of those characters has been a little interesting, especially with, you know, some did come from TV and whatever. But if you think about that movie, I was thinking about the end credit scene today, and I think that's going to play heavily into Doomsday. Do you remember that post credit scene from the Marvels?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally going to, because we confirmed we're going to see Beast in Doomsday.
A very underrated part of that movie is the fact that happened.
Yes,
and
super underrated.
It dealt with dimensional stuff.
Yes.
So I feel like the number of people that have missed out on that going into this movie, which is, again, love it or hate it, the multiverse is a big part of this phase, and it is going to be wrapped up somehow.
Yes.
So any movie that dealt with it is probably a movie that is important to have seen and to understand. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Because that was huge.
I forgot how huge it was, and then I thought about it today, and I was looking at the list, the known cast we know so far for Doomsday. And I was like, you know what, shit, we know Beast is in there already, and we know they're already going to probably be messing around with traveling to different universes. I don't know if we heard what universe that was in that post-credit scene, if it was 818 or 616
I don't think
or
they
a totally
mentioned,
different one.
and I have to go back and see if it was a hidden Easter egg about what it was.
But the idea's already at least been established that, hey, there's going to be traveling between universes, so it doesn't matter. It could be whatever universe.
It's going to be several.
Something, I think that perfectly is going to be, I think that's going to be coming back. I think we're going to see the alternate Monica Rambeau's mother who became binary. I think we're going to see her. And who else? I don't know if the other, like, Cyclops and them are going to come from that same universe. I don't know. I know we have a couple other confirmed X-Men. But yeah, I don't think people expected that movie to drop that big of a bomb.
No.
And now it's, and at that time, I don't even think we realized it until, like I said, I've been watching these recent projects and thinking about what Doomsday is going to be. And I'm like, holy shit, this could be. Now I'm starting to get excited because, people, as we've talked about, are complaining like, I'm so sick of this, like I'm getting fatigued. I'm like, I'm kind of getting hyped now because I think they might actually. I think they're starting to cook here. It's taken them a little bit of time, or they are kind of having to rush it, like we've talked about. Like they didn't have 30 movies to set up like they did the frickin' Infinity Saga, but I think they're starting to cook a little bit, and I'm excited for that.
There's also enough time to rewatch a lot of this, and to again, I think people are gonna realize this goes back. I'm sorry, this goes back to my point about like. They're not going to put $300 million into every project they make.
No.
When it comes to TV, they're not going to put in the same amount of money into every, but they're putting a certain amount into everything that they do because they believe in it and it's important, and it speaks to the worthiness of the stories being told, putting aside how to connect to anything else. So what irritates me is that, and I continue to sort of harp on this topic. I don't think, there are some truly terrible pieces of media out there, whether they be movies or shows, that get made, they get finished, and we're just like, oh man, that was bad. It was really, really bad. But like, they believed in it so much, they decided they had to make it, right? Yeah. I still think that everything that has been put forth by Marvel is, I say good, and everybody says, wants to think that means I think it's excellent and think it's phenomenal. I think good is a range. And I'll say this about things like sports and other things where like there is a range where there's a certain amount of people that like it, this much, but like it's, like for something to be bad, it's all subjective, right?
Yes.
But there's a range, and maybe that range is from 4.0 to 8 or 3.0 to 9, but like within that range, there is something in each project that is good, that is worth watching, whether it's a cinematographer, whether it's the story, whether it's a specific performance by an actor or actress, right? We talk about some movies all the time. I just went and saw one where, like, what are they going to say about this specific movie? They're going to say the cinematography is awesome. They're going to say the action is great. And then maybe they're going to say these other parts weren't so great. That's why critics and that's why other people have opinions about different parts of a specific movie or specific show. At the end of the day, we give it a rating or we give it a number and we say this is what we thought of it. But, like, to say that anything that they've put out is really terrible, I can't agree with it. No. And I look at this list and I say there are great things about all these projects that they put out. Yes. Some of them are excellent and are sort of like universally loved and pitched and just advocated for by everybody. And some of them are like, it's decent. I probably wouldn't watch it a million times, but like, I think about like Echo. Like, did I love it? I probably wouldn't say I loved it. Were there parts that I really liked about it? Absolutely. Loki, I think, is amazing. What if, like, they, after season 1, they just took off and said, we got to keep doing this, and they came up with crazier and more interesting stories. If you've watched some of the animated shows, I'm sure you've heard about how phenomenal they are and how they're just getting really deep and rich into the lore. But yeah, they're not going to be for everybody.
No.
But that doesn't mean that they're bad,
right.
And so I think with the streaming thing, people are sort of saying, oh, they're just cranking out projects now because they think they can, or they just have the time. It's like, no, there are people that are really passionate about these projects. You know, you don't sign up to be a showrunner or producer of these things if you're not gonna put some time and effort into it. And I love hearing, you know, if you go on Disney Plus or if you go on YouTube, for a lot of these shows, is the making of or like behind the scenes.
Those things are cool,
and they're really cool when they talk about where they sort of source material, where they got ideas, and how they executed some of these things. Like, some of these things have some very obscure inspirations, and I don't think people realize just how diverse and deep Marvel comics go. There's some storylines that will blow people's minds, and some of this stuff that they're reaching to find and do and execute, you know, is amazing. So I would just say people need to keep an open mind. But again, if you're not a big Marvel fan and you started watching and then you decided, you know, I'm not interested in Hawkeye or Moon Knight or Miss Marvel or She-Hulk, but Secret Invasion really speaks to me, you know, and then maybe you're disappointed by that, or maybe you liked it, I will say that's probably one of the weaker projects that they did. Not really well loved, but they did it. They put as much, you know, energy into it as they could. They maybe missed the mark in some ways, but then, you know, again, so then that shouldn't make you fall in love with picking up on another project. I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. And I think that's what's happening, is that people, maybe they watch a couple of these, they didn't love it, so then they said, well, I'm not going to watch Loki, I'm not going to watch What If, I'm out on Echo. Agatha all along, I have no interest.
It's too much.
And that's what I saw. And like Ironheart, it's like, well, we already have Iron Man, and this wasn't good and that wasn't good, so I'm not going to watch it. Eyes of Wakanda, like, what's the point? And then it just, you keep making excuse, and then you're just like, you're basically saying you're not going to get into any of these, and that's where I'm like, you're losing out at that point, because if this is something that sounds interesting to you, let me ask you this too, like, remember when WandaVision was coming out?
Yes. And
we were just getting, just like, they're doing like sitcom theme,
it was,
we're not really sure what it's about, and also Vision's dead.
So
was he alive? There was speculation, there were a lot of theories, but like, it was just like, what is this? And that was the first project that they had, man.
That's right.
It was the first project.
I forgot about that.
And it's like, let's watch this and see where it goes, and not just be like, I don't know, I guess I'll pick it up later because it sounds interesting, but you know, I don't know, 6 episodes, an hour, like, do I want to put in that time? Why not? You still interested in the characters? Watch it.
And
simple.
I thought it was worth it. I'd rewatch it.
It was fantastic.
Loved it. I like that topic. I'm glad you threw that out there, because I think you're 100% spot on. And I think people still need to, like, don't toss the TV projects aside.
And I will say, you know, just to sort of finalize this whole thing. The first saga was 6 movies, then 6 movies, and then we had another 11 movies. Like, we almost doubled it in Phase 3, leading up to Endgame. But there were still some, like, things where they had to summarize and, like, fill in some cracks. I think a nice thing that shows are doing is they fill in more of those cracks in some ways. It does make it a bit more layered and a bit more complex, because you've got all these different movies and you've got shows, some of them which are important, more important than others. Phase 4, 7 movies. Phase 5 so far, Phase 5 is done. 6 movies. So 7 and 6.
So back to
and then Phase 6 is actually going to be the shortest phase. It's only going to be 4 movies.
Oh my gosh.
Which is, you know, so like they kind of did reverse what they did with the first saga. But again, they filled in some of those cracks with the shows. Unfortunately, some people will be a little bit behind and probably have to have the whispered explanations and maybe have to watch it again with more context. I think when this saga is done, we'll kind of see like how that all sort of plays out. Like, how much regret will the casual fan have versus the super fan of what did we miss out on, what didn't we see, what did we see? I definitely think, and we so we've both seen Mission Impossible. One of the complaints, which I'm sorry, but I thought it was important, there was a bit of expositional dump at certain points in like the first 30-45 minutes, because they were highlighting a lot of the history of what Ethan Hunt had done up until that point. So there's a lot of montages, there were a lot of like, remember this thing, remember that thing. That's gonna happen in a movie like Doomsday, because there are a couple things that they're gonna want the audience to either remember or think about, some of which are things that maybe popped up in the show, and some of which that they're just like, listen, we're going to be focusing on this for the movie. Not everybody loves exposition. I think it's important when it's used properly. But in this case, because this Doomsday is going to be very different from Infinity War, because Infinity War was all from movies, right? Doomsday is going to have some shows and some movies that were involved. So there, I think I can see it coming where there's going to be some exposition. People are going to be like, why did they have to like bring that up again? Well, because it matters.
And because so many of you are complaining about fatigue and not watching these projects.
So then they're like,
doing
well,
it for you.
We probably have to bring it up because they probably haven't seen this or they maybe don't know about this. So we got to bring it up, and that happens.
I agree. It can be done poorly, I think, but I think overall we should be happy that they do that. And again, filling those cracks is so important because there are so many characters. And to the point you brought up, we aren't going to see all of them in the movie, or if we do, maybe it's just for a cameo. But I mean, let's break this down here as we kind of transition to talking about Doomsday.
Yeah.
Because we have the already established Avengers who are going to be led by Sam Wilson. Those are the ones we know. You got your Hulk, you got your Doctor Strange, your Spider-Man, ones like that.
Yeah.
Then you have maybe I'll call them your emerging Avengers who are they've had projects about them, but they haven't been fully like, congratulations, kid, you're an Avenger type thing, like Shang-Chi,
right,
and like that. Now we have the new Avengers.
Yep.
And then you have the young Avengers, who we don't really know what's going on with them at the moment because we haven't talked about them in a minute, but I'm assuming they wouldn't do all that work to set them up and just toss them 100% to the side. So you have 4 different pools of characters all kind of converging on one project.
I would say, and I think people are going to be people sad, but I would say the young ones probably going to be as important to this project.
I don't
probably
think
not.
So. No, I haven't made
out of the 4 you mentioned, probably those first 3 is what I envision.
I agree.
Then, and this is a mixture of things that we think and things that I know have been kind of put out, rumors and stuff like that. The Wakandans are going to kind of be their own thing in this movie from some rumors that I've heard.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yep. Then we have a mutant team of some kind that is coming from a different dimension. We know this because it got announced in the big chair reveal.
Oh, yeah.
So like all those names that we remember from X-Men movies, that's going to be a team. They're all going to be. They're not. At least we think they're not all going to be from different universes. They're going to be from the same one, and probably plucked or traveling somehow or what have you. The Fantastic Four. So at some point they're going to get into the fray as well.
Which, by the way, Kobe is wearing an awesome Fantastic Four shirt. If y'all haven't spotted, I think it's actually pretty awesome. Anyway, so go on.
And then I don't know that it's definitely going to be a team this time, but I don't think you can discount Guardians. I think that they might have...
Oh, I forgot about the Guardians.
We've kind of pushed them off to the side. They may not be involved this time. That's a possibility, but I think they should at least be in the conversation. We know Peter Quill is on Earth.
Yes.
And he did show up in concept art. So we know we're probably going to see him. I don't remember if he showed up in the official announcement. I want to say no.
No, I did not see him in the
But I'm
announcement,
pretty sure he's going to be
But then again,
involved.
neither did Doctor Strange or Spider-Man now, and we would assume both of them would make an appearance.
Yeah.
Although I did make a note that maybe Spider-Man is not a huge role in this movie. I don't know, maybe he's just more protecting New York if any conflict goes down in New York, since he is going back to trying to be, just friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, or actually technically kind of trying to throw Spider-Man to the side a little bit. We'll talk about it at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
But
I will say too, with Avengers movies, a lot of these characters don't get a lot of time because there's so many. So like, I mean, some of them get featured in different arcs. Like, one thing I liked about Infinity War is that we sort of branch off into different teams that were in different points in the universe, right? Yes. And so like we got to see Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and Spider-Man kind of featured together, right? Yeah. We got to see sort of the what did they call them? The not secret, I guess, kind of secret Avengers, where it was Black Widow, Captain America, Falcon at the time. They were doing their own thing. They had to go and rescue Wanda and Vision. Yeah. So but again, it was very, like, they were quick. There was so much to get to that those groups were together, but we didn't see them for long stretches of time. So same thing here. Spider-Man made a movie, but he might not get featured a ton. That cast list already was pretty huge. Yes. And we know there were more people involved.
We're going to get more,
So it's pretty evident that some of these heroes we're not going to see for very long.
But that being said, I think we talk about this all the time. You still got to let them cook, because I think that's a great point. Let's talk about. I'll talk about call them the banished Avengers for a second. So you're talking, Infinity War, Cap, Sam Wilson, Black Widow, and I guess Wanda at that point. Those 4, right? Yeah. You're right. Didn't get a ton of time with them, but I still felt like they did a great job of portraying what that 5 years or however long that time has been like for them. They're obviously very ragged when we first meet them. They make the joke about, the hotels weren't exactly 5 stars. I still think they did a great job kind of telling, again, these are what the characters have been up to, and now they're going to show up, do a little thing, and then we probably won't see them again. That's fine. Because, you're right. We've had 30 confirmed people already, but still are missing some heavy hitters. Like, if Doctor Strange isn't in this movie, that would be ridiculous. so he's got to be there.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, I think we would see at least in some capacity. I even think we'll see some more mutants that haven't been announced. So.
I'm just going to quickly read too. So we do have like we always like when movies are coming out, as we get close to movies, they update the sort of like premise. Like you get that little short paragraph of what the movie's about, and each time it gets a bit more detailed. So what we have right now, 14 months after the events of Thunderbolts, the Avengers, Wakandans, Fantastic Four, New Avengers, and the original X-Men. And they say original with quotations.
Oh.
So like again, like we've like had some announced, but when they say original, that leaves the door open for maybe a couple more from that group that we saw in the original X-Men movie, right? Like we can all recall who was in that movie, and we know about Magneto, who is not even an action X-Men. We have obviously Professor X. We have Nightcrawler. We had Cyclops, and Beast. Those are the 5. We sort of have loose confirmation about the possibility of Gambit, which would be interesting because we never saw him in the first 3 movies, right?
It's confirmed that Channing Tatum is in Doomsday, so he's got to be Gambit.
So does that mean that he joined that team later on? Is it the one that we met in Wolverine? Like we don't. Again, there's unanswered questions here.
Well, and also like. I'd also assume that would mean we see Storm at some point, but Storm I haven't heard anything about her, but I'm kind of like, if we don't see Storm, I'd kind of be disappointed.
And basically at this point, until the movie comes out and it doesn't happen, I'm just going to assume they'll find a way to make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these actors and actresses are well trained in the art of deception at this point. I think Chris Evans has said that he's not involved in MCU projects probably a couple dozen times since the end of his Captain America run. Well, we all know that he showed up in Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's true.
He was rumored to have cameo in at least 1 or 2 other movies that maybe got cut or didn't happen. It's pretty much guaranteed that we're going to see him in this movie, even if he wants to tell us that he's not involved.
All right.
I would be absolutely shocked. I would be shocked if we didn't see Halle Berry.
Yes.
Again, yes, she's probably maybe not on the top of her list of things to do, and maybe it's not a priority for her, but it's going to amount to probably anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes of screen time, and if Marvel wants to make it happen, they'll find a way. I mean, look at the list of people they got for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right.
It's possibilities are endless, and a lot of that depends on how the story in Doomsday progresses now that that's the direction they're going. I think one of the big decisions that we're going to see executed is who's actually going to be facing off against Doomsday. Because, again, you list all the heroes, they're not all going to face Doomsday.
No,
some of them will, and the other ones will probably be trying to achieve other objectives.
Yes.
Whether it's fighting minions and or associates of Doom, or, we had several different objectives in Infinity War. Thor had to go and get a new weapon, and they had to try and get the stone out of Vision. Like there's always different objectives to be achieved, and not all of them mean going up against the main villain. But 100%. Inevitably, we're going to see some face-offs, and I know the Fantastic Four will definitely face off. I mean, that's guaranteed.
Yes.
But who else? Who do you want to see face off against Doomsday?
I mean, it's for me, it's less of who I want, more of my mind immediately goes to who are their heavy hitters that are left. I mean, you do have some. You still have Thor's coming back, although he's been through a lot recently, so he's not going to be like he's not going to be freaking Endgame Thor. Like, let's do this properly.
But he's not going to be depressed.
He's not going to be depressed. But he's not going to be let's do this properly this time, Thor. So I think he's going to be somewhere in the middle. But he's still, he's a god. He's probably still probably the one of the strongest, if not the strongest on their team. Maybe the Hulk, depending on what he's up to these days or how he should be healed by now.
I'd love to see Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi for sure, yes.
Magneto. I think that could be fascinating.
Wait, that would be sick.
And then, and it just literally went out of my head. Who was I just about to say? Black Panther. Just because, again, from a technology perspective, what's that matchup going to be like?
True. That would be interesting.
Now, the Magneto thing always fascinates me because it's one of those problems where you've got this guy who controls metal, and there's famously lots of online content about him facing off against Iron Man and how that would go, and Captain America and how that would go. Like, literally, he has the advantage on a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
But Dr. Doom obviously is thinking steps ahead.
Yes.
So does that mean he just everything that he is donned with is going to be something that's resistant to, or anti his powers, or does he have a way to like dampen Magneto's part? Because you gotta think he's thinking how to protect myself against all these different situations. So I think that'd be fascinating somehow to see how that would play out.
Okay, I didn't think about that. That would be a sick
Magneto
fight.
has the upper hand at first, and then it gets turned on him somehow.
Yeah, but I think Shang-Chi for sure. That would be the one I'd be most excited to see. I think just because we haven't heard much from Shang-Chi,
and our post-credit scene at that time pointed to something very specific going on with his rings and power set and energy stores.
Yes.
So is that now going to get looped into Doomsday somehow? Because at that present moment, it seemed to be hinting with something with Kang.
Oh, true,
right?
true. That's
so
right.
Do you retcon that somehow? Was that maybe not as important as we thought it was? Maybe it's more important than we think it is. I don't know.
Going back to the point we made earlier, I don't think we're going to see the Young Avengers, or if we do, it's going to be very minimal. Or like you say, they definitely won't be. I put on here, Doom facing off against the kids, enhanced or not, seems unlikely because I think Doom would still wipe the floor with them. So unless we're just going to have a scene where he just murders all the Young Avengers, which would not happen, I feel like if that did, it would cause uproar on multiple levels.
So, that just made me think about something. If you really think about it, Infinity War and Endgame, startlingly few people died.
That's a great point. Yeah, we really only lost.
Yes, we had the snap, but when people came back, who actually died, right? Vision died, Black Widow died, Gamora died. Everybody else, for the most part, still around.
And
like
Tony,
for the end of, and well, right.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is,
Gamora.
I wouldn't be surprised if we have more deaths.
Yeah, and
like throughout Infinity War, because that's another thing about Infinity War. There were a lot of defeats, but there weren't deaths. Because he did kill Loki.
True.
He started off with killing Loki, but then throughout the rest of the movie, he hurt people without killing them until he got to Gamora. But that was a sacrifice.
He was all about the ethical killing. So
he just wanted to get to the end when he could do it to everybody.
Yeah,
right?
Doom is just out here to cause doom. So yeah, you're right. I guess no dependent. I don't know anything about his minions and how powerful they would be, but you're right. I definitely think we're going to see
his minions could be anybody. And that's the thing. Like, there's a speculation about, because Doctor Strange has famously, if he thinks it's for the greater good, if he thinks that it serves everybody in the long run, there is talk that he's going to turn Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange is currently dealing with the problem of incursions. We haven't, which we sort of expect he will deal with in his own movie down the road.
Yes.
But what if, because that's the big tagline that we've heard, is that Doom is trying to prevent / deal with incursions. That's why he's doing what he's doing. So does that mean that his world, I guess one things that will get cleared up right away when we watch this movie is he from the Fantastic Four universe? Is he somebody who's faced off against the Fantastic Four, but in a different universe? Like, where is he from? Where is he actually from? We don't know. But if he's dealing with that, Doctor Strange is a powerful ally.
Yes.
In that regard, and of course, so is Franklin in that regard. But there's just so much unanswered that we're not going to get cleared up, unfortunately, till that movie. I expect it's going to be a very long movie. I mean, I would not be surprised if that one hugs 3 hours with this the amount of, again, exposition that we expect.
Yeah, and I do think you're right. The more I think about this, the more I think it is very possible to see more deaths, because I even have that written down about or in my notes about how are they going to even defeat him, because yes, this new team cohesively or in aggregate has a lot more members than the team in Endgame, but a lot of them are weaker on the power scale. So and Doom is arguably is it confirmed he's supposed to be stronger than Thanos? Do we know that aspect of his strength or where he ranks? I guess?
Don't think he ranks that high in terms of raw power, but I mean with his intellect and his ability to acquire power to turn people to just I think overall he's just formidable, because he's so hard to outthink, he's so hard to outduel. He has a multitude of ways he can beat you, to influence you.
And if
he's prepared. He's very prepared all the time.
And if we've all, if we already know that he's good at turning people, that actually makes me more concerned, because again, if my theory is right at a base level, and Doom is Tony Stark, we've already seen through Zemo, through Ultron, we've already seen that if you start turning these people on each other, it's game over. And it's who knows these people better than Tony Stark. So there could be potential there for him to, I don't know, I feel like I could see him turning them on each other, although he doesn't know all the new people, but he knows some of the heavy hitters like Thor and Hulk and Doctor Strange. So that could be really messy.
I mean, again, it depends on this iteration how to do the powers and abilities, but is his intellect combined with his raw power and his ability to... So he's been able to get cosmic power, he's been able to get magical power. He obviously has power through his technology as well. So, he can attack you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And then, again, when you pair that with the different allies he's had, that this makes it tough because you're probably not just facing off against him.
Yeah.
He obviously is the last domino to fall, but I don't think he's by any means the only domino. So
Oof.
if they go with the him having mastery of dark magic, and then also having a technological aspect as well, it's like how many different things you have to worry about with him, because I'm just looking right now at sort of the powers and abilities, just the raw.
Ooh, okay.
Smartest man, one of the smartest men, got the intellect.
Okay.
He steals, replicates powers of cosmic beings.
Oh boy.
He genius level scientist and inventor, powerful sorcerer. So I mean, again, you combine somebody like Iron Man with maybe somebody like Doctor Strange, where you got intellect, you've got just the power to invent and to innovate, and then you've got the power of sorcery as well. That's just a lot to overcome.
Yes, you're right. I think we're gonna have to start getting used to the idea, or comfortable with the idea, that we might see multiple people fall here and not come back, because I think they've done enough of the. I don't think they're bringing everyone back, or at least maybe some people. If maybe they'll find a way.
At least not in if they go down, you may not see them in Secret Wars.
Yeah.
They may cease to have any sort of role.
Yeah, I mean, I guess never say never. I would kind of hope that, I hate to say this, but I kind of hope if they do kill off a bunch of people, they don't bring all of them back. If you want to bring some of them back, sure, but it kind of almost defeats the purpose. We have already seen in Fantastic Four that Franklin has some sort of powers to that effect, and maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but he did essentially save his mom.
He did.
So I don't know how long, I don't know how expansive that power is or whatever, but I hope they don't just be like, all right, we're going to kill these 10 people, and then Franklin, later down the line, you bring them all back. I would hate to see that.
Yeah.
Because, I think that's just, it gives no weight to the deaths.
I would definitely like to chat about Franklin in a future episode.
Yeah, we can definitely, because I'm curious
now. Yeah.
Okay.
He presents some interesting problems.
Okay.
He definitely is going to have potential to be helpful, but he also just problems. Yeah. As far as just teasing his importance, when you talk about mutants, when you hear the word Omega,
oh boy,
that's meaningful.
Yeah.
It's one of those. It's on par with Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Put it that way. It flips the playing field in such a way that if he is on your side, that is something significant. And I do wonder how big or little of a role he's going to play. The fact that he is around already and that we saw him in the post-credit scene just speaks to he will have a role. But is it the kind of role where he just opens up a can of worms, or is it the role where he continues to be involved, right? Because kind of like Captain Marvel, you have to be careful, because characters like that can kind of either cause all the problems or solve all the problems on their own. Now, he's young, so maybe that's a plot point where he's not completely in control. Versus somebody like Sentry, who theoretically could be completely in control until, his other side takes over. But he's an adult. Yeah. So, that plays differently than, say, a kid who has crazy potential, but as we know, kids are learning, growing, they're unstable, they need time, right?
Yep.
You don't expect a kid to just have mastery over something like that. But it's interesting to think about, because that's not a throwaway scene, right?
No, we're definitely gonna have to.
Yeah.
Oh, we're definitely gonna have to talk about him in a different episode. All right, so we were talking a little bit about. We've been talking a little bit about X-Men recently, so I know for a couple of our, as we get into our outro topics here, we wanted to talk about the X-Men movie coming out in 2028, which I believe is still 2028 confirmed.
Yeah, I think
which
so.
Seems a long time away, but we'll be here before we know it.
Oh yeah.
So we wanted to talk about our wish list for directors and actors, and then talk about Spider-Man 4 and what we're excited about, what we're concerned about, things related to that. So X-Men 2028. You, again, are more in-depth knowledge about directors. So let's start with directors. Who would you love to see directing this?
So, when I sort of brought this up to you, and then I had to think, and I could be wrong, but they may have already selected a director.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, I kind of wish, and we can still talk about this,
yeah.
and we can talk about the specific selection, too.
Okay.
So we know him already because he's directed a recent movie. He directed Thunderbolts.
I was wondering if they were going to pull the Thunder. Okay.
So they got Jake Schreier from Thunderbolts, who, again, we can talk more about that movie, but he absolutely killed it with that ensemble cast.
I would think so. Yeah.
And so I was going to bring up, when talking about directors, we need a director that can handle an ensemble cast and put that together. So I would have, these are lofty goals, but like I would have said the two that come to mind right away would have been Chris Nolan,
of course,
and Villanueva, which he's going to be busy with Dune, and obviously Chris Nolan's too busy. But
that'd been awesome.
The wish list would have included directors that have worked with ensembles, but then I probably would have thrown a couple callbacks to directors from the past from Marvel in there as well, just because. Again,
for sure,
working in that world and being successful in it, I think. Also, with X-Men, I think for me, we've talked about this in the previous episode. X-Men is about diversity, right?
Yes,
it's talking about the rights of individuals that are persecuted against. So I think getting somebody that understands that would have been helpful as well.
Yeah,
there was talk at one point that what's his name? Why am I forgetting? Ryan Coogler. Just as a sort of like a dark horse pick, just because it'd be nice to see him work in a different realm.
Yeah.
In the MCU, because he's obviously been with Black Panther Wakanda for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would have been some of the ones I would have thought of before we found out that they had kind of zeroed in on Jake Schreier. But as far we've got a long way to go before we start selecting the different characters and the people who are going to portray them. But I think what I would want to think more about is which characters we want to see.
Yes.
Because we've seen several used over and over again. So maybe do we want to go in a different direction?
Well, that's the thing, and I don't know. I guess I didn't look. Do we have any sort of a synopsis about what No? Okay. So
that's the
thing, because I'd expect we would see some repeat. I don't think we're going to see an entirely new, 100% new cat. Even if we literally just see one, like we see we even just see Colossus teaching a new set of X-Men or whatever. I think we'll see at least one veteran mutant. But does that mean we bring back both Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think so. Yeah, I definitely think they're going to move on and do something completely new. The only two that I could see being involved, just because it's recent, is Ryan Reynolds, obviously, and Hugh Jackman, because till he's 90.
Right.
But with everybody else, I would love. I'm not saying they're not going to pop up because they probably will. But like Professor X and Magneto, I feel like let's push them off the side for a minute because they're certainly as critical to the X-Men lore as anybody. But like some of the other characters on like the X-Men team, some of the other villains that maybe we haven't seen, who would those be? So like I've heard people say like Jubilee. I've heard people say
that'd be good.
We haven't really gotten the Gambit. I know we just recently got to see that, but like a young Gambit, do we want to do Jean Grey again? I would feel like they might stay away from that, but she's kind of an important character. So,
or at least
Emma Frost has been talked about.
Yeah, or at least I think I keep hearing all the time on TikTok from content creators in this space that they talk about. Yes, they've given the Dark Phoenix thing a couple tries, but then they always follow it with, but the Dark Phoenix story is not the Jean Grey story. Like, there's more to the Dark Phoenix story.
Right.
So do they try to do the Dark Phoenix but correctly this time or expanded this time?
I am struggling to find the animated X-Men information just because that I feel like that cast might be like a jumping off point for what they might want to do.
I'd at least like to know what Negasonic's up to these days. We haven't heard from her in a minute, and she I think is hilarious.
So and the lineup for this is Cyclops, is Jean Grey, Storm, Wolverine, Morph, Rogue, Beast, Gambit, Jubilee, Bishop. I'm trying to remember if Cable showed up. I feel like I remember them saying
Cable.
Some
we could see Cable again. I could see that.
And the Nightcrawler. Cable's got a very interesting history, right?
Yeah.
So we got to see Cable pop up in Deadpool 2.
Yeah, and I feel like that'd be interesting to bring him back, especially because of the fact that he did make such a sacrifice to stay in this universe. So if we suddenly were just like, we're never going to talk about him again, I get it. We can't talk about everyone. But that would kind of maybe be a little disservice. Here's an interesting one. Do you think we see Daphne Keane?
Oh yeah, I hope so.
I would hope so too.
I don't know what form that takes because he's it's canon and all that. How does that work? But like they're in the MCU in a different universe, and I think they're all going to play a part in what will eventually be the current universe. However that all shakes out. And now that she's reemerged as the character. So I hope they find a way to keep it around, or if it's reimagined. I mean, they still have a few movies to play around with how a lot of these characters are going to stick around and all that. So, yeah, I do want her to stick around.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns still with this. Obviously, plenty of unknowns still with this movie because we literally just have the director and
not even really any story beats or anything. And I think, again, it's going to be the kind of beginning of a new phase. So it's kind of a clean slate to deal with.
We are in a bit of a mutant phase right now, too. They'll
become the focus.
Yes, they're going to become more of a focus and more just, you're going to see them totally more often. And it's
the real question is, which title did they go with? Did they go with Uncanny X-Men? Did they go with Incredible X-Men? Did they go with Amazing X-Men? Like, there's a lot of different options.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh.
Astonishing X-Men. I mean, I'm just looking at the different comic book runs, the different titles, and there are so many different. You go with X-Force. No, don't do that.
I was literally just about to say, hey, you get freaking Deadpool in there, and he'll start just throwing names out there.
I would say Astonishing, Uncanny, or Extreme would be fun, but I bet they'll do something a bit. I mean, Amazing X-Men sticks out to me as probably the leader in the doghouse for simplicity anyway.
I still think we will see Deadpool in a lot of these upcoming projects, but I will be curious to see if there's any fallout from the recent stuff with him and Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively in the news and all that. I don't know if we've gotten over all that, or if Marvel's going to want to put some distance in between them. I don't know.
I don't think so. They're not going to be featured.
No, I think that's the
again, it's a big ensemble, and they're not featured.
Yeah.
They had their feature, so time kind of and some distance and being able to fade into the background, so to speak. I think that's all going to help. So we'll see.
Last but not least, Spider-Man 4, Brand New Day, right?
Brand New Day.
All right. Oh my gosh. Okay. What are you excited for, and what are you concerned about, Kobe? What are your thoughts on this?
I think I'm always going to be excited for a Spider-Man movie, and this is our first Spider-Man 4 that we're getting, realistically.
Yes.
So I want to start with concerns just because we thought it was going to be a bit more... the ensemble is concerning me because of the people that are involved. Because now that we've heard that Hulk is involved, Punisher's involved, apparently Black Widow is going to show up.
Oh, I did not know that.
And that's just supposed allies / heroes, which Punisher, anti-hero, whatever you want to say. I think we know about Scorpion because that was officially announced that he's part of the cast, and we know that character played the guy who's going to turn into Scorpion. Remember in the first movie, he was it was one of those quick moments. The villain of that movie was Vulture, but some of the other henchmen that were involved. One of them was an associate of his that was not Electro, the other. They had technology and used it. Yeah. Anyway, Scorpion, who was teased for a couple movies because he was on a post-credit and whatever, and now he's actually going to play Scorpion. So we know he's in it. But who's the big bad? We don't know.
Yes.
But with all the other additions, I'm just a little concerned.
Yeah, that was going to be... I probably should have started with that because I was going to say, all we know so far, the short description on IMDb is, he's in college now and he's once again trying to be a normal kid, basically leaving Spider-Man behind. Right. And then all it says is something happens and he has to once again battle with that conflict. And then, confirm Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, MJ and Ned, and then Tombstone was the only other name that I kind of recognized.
Oh, yeah.
But he's confirmed to be
Tombstone's another villain that's been associated with a couple different characters, including Kingpin. But I don't think Kingpin's related to this story. I do want to see that later on. That would be fun to have Kingpin be a villain for Spider-Man in another story. Yeah, I think a lot depends on who the villain is, and then it really depends on the structure of this movie. Is Hulk and Punisher's involvement fleeting? Is it a huge part of the movie where they keep popping up, or is it maybe the first act and a half, and then they bow out? We'll see. I don't. Those characters are fine. Punisher seems a little bit out of place because he's kind of brutal, and this is a PG-13. I mean, Spider-Man's PG-13, so they have to dial some things back when it comes to Punisher in that regard. So does that take away the spirit of the character? And then Hulk, we haven't really seen him in action for a long time. Even in Endgame, it wasn't the Hulk that we're used to seeing, and the Hulk that we've seen most recently was more in line with what we expect from Hulk when we saw Red Hulk. So is he back to being that Hulk again? I would hazard a guess that it's a yes. I would expect that we aren't going to be seeing Smart Hulk, because what would be the point of bringing him in if that's what we're getting? So hopefully we're getting sort of a rampaging Hulk. So then is that why Punisher's involved, right? Is Punisher helping out with that, or is it totally unrelated?
My big thing, and maybe this isn't as big of a deal, but again, according to the very short synopsis we have right now, he's kind of trying to put Spider-Man behind him and just focus on college and be a normal kid. And we have heard that complaint from him in the last few movies, like, I just want to be a normal kid. And while that is a genuine concern, if you're a kid in his situation, he's not a normal kid, and I feel like that attitude is kind of continuing to undermine one of the first things we hear him say. I guess at least Tom Holland, when we meet him as Spider-Man, one of the first things he says is, "When you can do what I can, and then you don't, and bad things happen, it's on you." And so I feel like suddenly that idea is clashing with the whole, yeah, I can be Spider-Man, I've been Spider-Man, but like, I have college classes, and I just want to be a normal kid. Now I think they're kind of trying to balance that with no, he's kind of just he just wants to be the neighborhood Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be this guy going into space and fighting aliens. He wants to be the neighborhood, or the one saving the neighborhood kids. Which I think that's fair, but then again, we've also seen again in prior movies, like him wandering the streets of New York in a suit, waiting for Tony Stark to call him with his next Avengers mission. So I feel like he's, I don't know, I feel like he's a little all over the place here. And even if he's focusing now on, I don't want to be Spider-Man anymore, I do think that's kind of undermining some things that he's talked about in the past. But that's my 2 cents.
I do think I think he felt the pressure to continue to be Spider-Man after Endgame to sort of honor Tony.
Yeah.
And there's that whole, in the second movie, there's a narrative of like who's going to be the next Iron Man, and him thinking that he had to pick up the mantle, and then realizing that no, he just needs to continue to be Spider-Man, but like continue to help and save people and stop other people from trying to dishonor his legacy. Yeah. And then the third movie was really just about, in a lot of ways, reaffirming that he does have a responsibility. I mean, yeah, it's cliche, but like responsibility came up a lot in that movie because. Yep. He sort of started doubting if he needed to make a difference, and his aunt told him that you absolutely should continue to do what you're doing. What you're doing for them is great, right?
Right.
So then it kind of becomes, he picks up that flag and he sprints with that flag through the second act of that movie to the point where it ends up taking her life, right?
Yeah.
Because it all goes south. And at that point, I think he was ready to walk away and be done, and kind of let whatever happens to them happens. Yeah. Let Doctor Strange figure it out, I guess. Yeah. Although he had kind of trapped him in the mirror dimension.
Yeah. That was
but
good.
He was pretty despondent, right? And then it took getting the other 2 Spider-Men involved to sort of reel him back into realizing, this is who I am, this is who we are. Yes. Because, unfortunately, when you are Spider-Man, as we also hear about in the Spider-Verse, they deal with a lot of loss. They have to endure a lot of pain, but they continually rise above it. It's a theme, right? They just, unfortunately, they have to endure a lot and still maintain true to that character, that resolve, that responsibility that they have. So I can see how he's going to struggle with that in this movie because, like, again, he's alone now.
Yeah.
And it does sound like he's going to try and win over MJ again.
I would think so.
And I really hope that it's done without the assistance of any retroactive magic spell removal, and just they're meant to be together, so he just wins her over again, right? Mm-hmm. That would be my preferred route. I also want to see who his friends are, like his actual friends, because he ends the movie without having any family, without having any friends. So is he, is it Ned again? Is it other people that he's sort of just like clinging on to? And then of course, like, how much is he interacting with MJ? Because he had that very quick interaction at the end.
Yeah.
And,
that broke my heart.
Yeah, just decided at that point that he had to walk away for their sake. But I don't think he's going to be able to resist.
No, he
continuing to be in her life.
I don't think he's going to get over it.
Even if he's trying to be noble and stay out for their safety and all those kinds of things. So that's, I think, I anticipate they're going to do a good job of mixing all of that together as they hopefully set him up for another great arc.
Yes.
And then, because of all of this happening right before Doomsday, I do wonder if maybe he does set Doomsday up. Maybe he gets sucked in very briefly and gets more involved. Like, we'll see. I don't necessarily think he's as essential to this part as a lot of other characters are. But certainly, Spider-Man always has a role to play, so.
I am ultimately excited, but I do think, I'm just curious now how many more Spider-Man movies we're going to get. Or, like, is this going to be, like, 4 and then we're done? Because now they kind of reset him, or not reset his story. Yeah. Now Tom Holland is the most accurate or is accurate to what we know Spider-Man to be now. But that just happened after 3 movies. So now we're just gonna get one more and then we're done. Or
I think they're reluctant to say what's coming after Doomsday and Secret Wars, because I remember when we had Infinity War and Endgame, we sort of had blank. We sort of had like there were dates or there were like boxes and they were blank, and it was like there's something, we just can't tell you what it is yet, what's happening. And then right after Endgame we sort of had this rush of like, well, we're getting Black Widow and we're getting Shang-Chi and we're getting Eternals and we're getting, like, all of a sudden it was just like, well, here are the next like 3 movies and this is probably gonna be the 4th movie. And then I remember there was like that sizzle reel of like what's coming next, and it was just like, oh my god, like we are still rolling, right?
So they might not even 100% know.
I think we can reasonably expect that X-Men, Black Panther, Doctor Strange.
Yes, because they set up
Doctor Strange. Those are the 3. Like Black Panther and Doctor Strange need their 3rd movie, and they've already kind of set the stage for what direction those are going to go in. Yes. And then X-Men's like the big new thing. Yeah. Probably, I would throw not New Avengers, Young Avengers in there as a possibility as well.
You're right. I think they're going to end up being their own thing.
And then there'll be some surprises because there always are. So it's something we're not thinking about that they're probably really excited to do.
But yeah, Spider-Man, I'm just curious to see how much further they take it. Because now he's in college, but I guess, well, have we seen any of the other? How old have we seen the other Spider-Men get? Like Tobey, I guess, was only in school, right? He never got past school. So yeah, I guess we're coming up on.
Tobey was college age, although we saw him in probably early to middle adulthood. Yeah, the last time we saw him, and then college age for Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man 2. Yeah. So I mean, college age seems to be usually where we sort of like leave off. It would be nice to see Tom Holland operating as an adult. Yes. So maybe
one more?
2 college age movies, and then one after that, and maybe with like him,
which would be nuts because that's
married, family, more connections. Yes. Because he's, again, to lose all the connections and then maybe regain some, make some new ones would be nice.
And that would be nuts to have 6 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, but at the same time, it's kind of almost like 2 separate trilogies.
They're working on it, right? Yeah. I think about with Tobey Maguire, he had MJ the entire time, right? True. Did his best to lose her in the 3rd one, and then still it looks like they reconcile moving forward. And then in the 2nd one, he lost Gwen Stacy, right? We didn't get to see a 3rd movie, but clearly he was going to move past that and kind of forge ahead. Yeah. And we didn't get to see how that went, but we got a little. Basically, he said that he got what's the word?
Closure.
Well, he got closure in the movie, but he said before that he was vengeful. And rageful. Remember? He was just talking about.
Wait, I forgot about
and I kind of imagined, like, I was like, you're not going to go over that fast. Yeah, it was nice for that movie for him to come out and sort of show a brave face, but they were brutal with that one. Absolutely brutal. But yeah, you're right. He did get closure of sorts, so when he got to redeem himself, and I think we all cheered for him in that moment. So I think the best thing I can say about this movie is that they get to. We do get to see a progression of Spider-Man we haven't seen in any other iteration.
Yes, so that is exciting.
It's the next phase of his life and his development, and that's exciting.
Yes. And I mean...
And did you see the suit, man?
Yeah.
It's probably the best looking suit.
I would agree.
That they've ever come out with.
Yeah.
It just... And it shines.
I do love... I mean... The suit that Tony made him, like the Iron one was cool and all that, but I'm like, but this isn't Spider-Man.
No.
Like,
it was a bit...
It was ostentatious. It was
tech.
Yeah, I think that
still tech savvy and very streamlined and very. There's a word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and that one, I get it. Tony made it for him.
It was built for war. It was built for. It was built for battle. You know,
and defense, like keep him safe with like the.
It was tactical.
It
was tactical.
Yes, absolutely very tactical.
The first suit and frankly the second two for sure, because he built that one by himself from the ground up using Tony's technology, and then the third one was like a hybrid of like the Iron Spider suit and kind of the previous one that he had made. He kind of like meshed them together, right? So this is him finally just using basic materials.
I was gonna say, and I'm all for even making improvements based off of that. But yeah, I feel like no wonder you were walking around stressing about, am I supposed to be the next Iron Man? Yeah, you're wearing an Iron Man suit, man. Maybe take that off.
Right.
And just go back to the friendly neighborhoods. I mean, you're the original Spider-Man. When you first became Spider-Man, I guess we never saw. No, we did see Tom Holland's original suit. We never saw it on him. Yeah, we saw his original freaking.
In the final sequence of that movie, he was wearing the basic ass
pajamas. Like every single time, it's like basic pajamas. Like go back to that. Maybe not quite that far.
And I do love watching that scene because he really is just the strength and his homemade webs at that point, which were not great. Mm-hmm. And again, so like it's just the limitless-ish potential of what a Spider-Man can be with very rudimentary tools, and then he got to like get some upgrades throughout the rest of the movies, and now he's kind of going back to more of his own style, his own tech, which I think is going to be great to see too.
I'm excited, and that'll come up. Yeah, that'll be here. So that's before Doomsday. That's July, and then Doomsday is December 2026.
Yes.
So we are already less than a year away from that, and nearly just over a year away from Doomsday. That's crazy. Yeah, it's going to be here soon.
I would expect that we would get a teaser for Doomsday shortly before, or maybe attached to Brand New Day. Because Brand New Day is when again? You said it's May?
I think it's July.
Or it's July. Did they move it?
Yeah, I think I just saw.
That timing would make a hell of a lot of sense. Yeah, so it's July.
Yep.
So
July 31st.
They probably don't want to wait that long to release a teaser.
You know what?
I would think April and May. A teaser for Doomsday.
Or you know what would be great?
I think a Spider-Man. We could see a Spider-Man trailer or teaser maybe beginning of the year.
It would be like something like during the Super Bowl, which I know they've done in the past.
Oh yeah, February would be perfect.
Super Bowl. Oh yeah, so yeah, February. That's actually not that late in the year. Yeah, but February we get something. At least Spider-Man.
It'll be Spider-Man for sure.
Yeah. We could theoretically get Doomsday. That'd be early, but I mean, I'd be for it.
Let me do some quick research here. I just want to see when they did the first teaser for Infinity War.
I'd be for it.
Because when that one dropped, the world stopped. Yeah. I remember it. I didn't want to do anything that morning. I just wanted to watch it over and over again.
That original trailer, oh my gosh. I wish I could go back and watch that for the first time again.
November 29th, 2017.
Okay.
Which would place that...
It's November 2017.
6 months before? Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, because it came out in April. November, yeah, so that was 6 months. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to see a teaser till Brand New Day actually comes out.
Fair.
So, if they wanted to, and they'll have the time to do this, they could get a really excellent teaser set up for release with Brand New Day.
Yes, so I think it's what we'll see, yeah. Like, that's probably one of the things I'll be most hyped for.
Yeah.
Because for sure, especially if we haven't seen anything yet, by the time we're getting a teaser during... Yeah, bottom line, go see it. It's probably going to be great. But,
yes.
Yeah, I think that's... a great way to end on. I don't have any more notes, at least on our main topics.
Awesome.
We will take a few quick minutes here to wrap up. But I think as soon as we're done filming, we're both going to be heading. You'll be heading home and going to bed, and I'll be heading to my bed and going to bed because you've been busy.
Yeah, I am just wrapping up clinical. So if you haven't seen as much of me as you have wanted to or like to, that is why. I am doing 10-hour days at a hospital right now, and loving it for the most part. But it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time.
For sure.
So I'll be done by December, and then I'll be sitting for a 4-hour exam.
Hell yeah.
And when I'm not doing those things, trying to squeeze in the little frisbee and dodgeball along the way.
Oh, yeah, right.
And of course, it's football season, so that's very distracting.
Yeah, those Vikings, man.
We'll talk about it another time. I will shout out that should be a fun Sunday night. Aaron Rodgers versus the Packers.
Yes.
I will be watching that with my dad, so I'll probably text you a couple times.
Where am I going to be Sunday night? Oh yeah, well we might have to find a place to watch it. Nikki and I are going to be hanging out. Nikki is currently in Europe. She's been there for a week, and she's there until Saturday, and then she's home for all of Sunday, and then Monday she flies out to Chicago for a work conference for a couple of days. So basically the whole last half of October here, my girlfriend's been out of town. But it's been fine. I've been keeping busy. I'm glad that this is one of the things I wanted to do while she was gone. I wanted to film another episode of my other podcast, but I don't think it's going to happen at this point because it's equally as hard to get scheduling in. But that's, again, Kobe talked about briefly at the beginning of the episode. We want to do this a lot more often, but we're both busy, and especially like I'm usually the one to at least instigate like, hey, what will be a good day? And I have just been crazy busy, and I still am, but very recently I have. Basically, I originally told people I was taking things off my plate, but that's not technically true. What I've done is I've kind of reprioritized my time, and now I'm really focusing on what gives me the most joy and what gives me the most back out of life. Spending a lot more time with my close friends, my family, and less time on just like, I guess, less important relationships or more just side relationships in my life. So. But with that reprioritization of my time, I'm hoping to now work with Kobe, especially once he gets out of school, to do these more often.
I would love to say once a month, if not more.
That'd be perfect.
I think we can definitely pull that off, and I will have so much more time. So I'm excited to just delve into some more topics, maybe highlight some characters, and I'm sure we're going to have some input from friends and
and eventually I'd love
listeners and watchers about what they would like us to get into.
Yeah, and I'd love to start, although with this new space it might be a little tricky, but I'd love to start bringing, we have a lot of friends who are passionate about this and a lot of friends who motivate us to do this.
We've talked about it, so
we should bring guests on. I think that'd be very fun, so we'll work on that. But yeah, I know I originally said that 2025 was going to be the year that we're doing more podcasts. Might be 2026 now, but again, it's for valid reasons, and they'll only be better at that point. So until then, I've been keeping busy with my girlfriend and I've been staying busy. We've been traveling a lot, but I think the rest of this year will be a little more laid back, which is nice. Especially with the snow about to come sooner rather than later here, and just the holidays in general. So, but I'm getting excited to talk more, and especially we have a lot of exciting projects coming up. Do not sleep on these projects. Again, you got something.
Yeah, I just want to mention, just in general, and again, people are going to be tired of me talking about how I feel about movies, shows, and giving original ideas a chance. I want to shout out, just if you like Star Wars and you haven't watched it, watch Andor. It's a phenomenal piece of television, and frankly, probably deserves more attention than it's gotten. I just want to advocate people to support original projects in general, whether it is on HBO, whether it is on Amazon, whether it's on Disney Plus, Hulu, whatever it is, especially if it's great and it deserves recognition. Shout it out, get people to watch. My list right now is extremely long because I just haven't had the time to knock a lot off of it, but I look forward to doing that in January and February when I have time.
Yes.
For anybody who is into Tron, it's one of those niche things that not everybody knows about, loves, and appreciates, and it's probably something we're not going to see much of going forward because it doesn't have that support that you always wish for from the corporate overlord, so to speak, who only care about money. But I do have to say that I was very pleased and impressed with the most recent iteration. So if you have any affinity for it, I definitely advocate seeing it in the theater.
Nice.
I definitely will be seeing it again when I get the chance. And everybody hears me talk about things like this and says, so you're saying it's 10 out of 10? No, I'm saying that if you are into the aesthetic and the themes and the cinematography and everything that Tron stands for, you're going to enjoy this. Okay? And this is me as someone who is not a big Jared Leto fan, who was worried for years about this. It was a good movie.
Nice.
Just wanted to plug that as well.
I love that. I'm not on the Tron train, but I have heard great things about Andor, and I'm pissed that I canceled my Disney Plus before I got to see it. That being said, I think my buddy burned the 2 seasons onto a flash drive for me, so I think I can watch it illegally.
Yeah, and I'll be willing to do that with you too.
Yeah. So I definitely need to go back and watch that. I want to start from the beginning though, because it's very
relevant to our current times. I think that's the big thing, and it's so on the nose sometimes that it actually hurts a little bit, and it can be triggering.
Absolutely. So yes, go watch that, and just everyone be safe out there to that effect. Because
yes, please. If you're out there,
times are weird right now.
Advocating, protesting, speaking your mind, just be careful, be safe. You have our support.
Absolutely, every day. On that note, that's, I think, going to do it for us. I'm going to get this out pretty quickly. I think I'll be able to get this episode out this week, which is great, and then we'll figure out when the next filming is going to happen. But again, might not be till 2026 right now, because I want to make sure Kobe gets his studying in, because that's very important. But it won't be that long before you see us again, I don't think.
Definitely not.
Or Lydia, because she always wants, you're coming back now to say
Lydia's
goodbye.
Back.
Coming back to say goodbye to everyone. All right. Thank you all again for joining us. Thank you, Kobe, for being with me.
Always.
That was another episode, and we are out.